The Marshfield Conservation Commission on Wednesday, January 17th, 2024. May I have a second?
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. I want to start out by recognizing the contribution that Susan Karen made to this commission over the past several years, and actually long before that, she was also a commissioner. She has stepped down. She will continue to serve as the chair of the Open Space Committee. Susan works tirelessly for this town in multiple capacities, and I really want to sincerely thank her for her service to this commission. Okay, we are continuing with our hybrid meetings. Our first order of business is 335 Carswell Street, which is the replacement of sonotubes for a deck. Yes, you. And you are Mr. Watson?
Yes, I am. Hi, everyone.
Hi.
Nice to meet you. So my house was built in 2000. My deck is original to the property. When I bought the house 3.5 years ago, it was in pretty bad shape. It's in even worse shape now. I didn't really realize how dire the situation was until I had multiple contractors come out and take a look at it. The contractor I'm going with believes the frame is reusable. What is the kind of the most concerning part, though, are the footings in the ground. When they built the deck, they used these little 8-inch cement footings, and they are sinking. And the sinking has gotten noticeably worse in just the last year. It's now to the point that the middle two posts on that main support beam, they're no longer even touching. So I just kind of pounded those pieces of wood in there, as you can see. That beam is supported completely by just the two end posts. And the entire thing is starting to break, and it's starting to fall inward. So just because of the storms we've had the last couple weeks, how saturated the ground is, you know, my contractor's really concerned about it collapsing. So that's why he had to kind of take some emergency measures just to prop it up in the meantime. So our intention is to replace the 8-inch footings with 12-inch footings. That is current building code from what I'm told. And then also make the support beams, which they use little skinny 4x4 beams. I'm also told that current code is 6x6 posts. So we're looking to do a 1-to-1 replacement, swapping, removing the 8-inch, putting 12-inch. I know they look big in my drawing there, but I'm sure that's not 1-to-1 scale. But and then once we get the new posts in, build a new support girder on there, and then once the frame is fully properly supported, he's going to replace the decking, replace the railings, replace the stairs, because all of those are in poor shape as well.
Okay. What is the resource area, Mike?
This is classified as a human-altered wooded swamp. It's a human-altered wetland. His entire home, and I believe the neighbor's property, is also in that classified area. The area limited to the scope of work is pre-disturbed lawn area, as you can see here, and connects the home to the driveway. It's also an egress.
Okay. I have no problem with this as a de minimis activity. You have a hazardous situation there right now, and everything is previously disturbed. Do any other commissioners have any comments?
No issue.
No issue? I move that we consider this a de minimis activity for the replacement of sonotubes at 335 Carswell Street. May I have a second?
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. You're good to go. Thank you. Okay, 160 Bay Avenue, changes to the back deck design. Is there someone here to present this one?
Is there anybody here to... I would speak on behalf of this, but I'm not entirely sure what Mr. Tedeschi had in plan there for his property, and I'm not prepared to speak on his behalf for that.
Okay, I think they're going with the pervious pavers. They had this is the property that had the
Yes.
raised walkway that,
I think I see a Bay Ave up on the Zoom.
is there anyone on Zoom in reference to 160 Bay Ave?
I know Mr. Tedeschi came in the office and described that he wanted to do the back deck on pervious pavers. The site plan also notes that the walkways would use pervious paving as well. But yeah, I haven't spoken to his contractor extensively about this project.
Okay, I think he's planning on doing,
Likely.
but I want to really confirm that before we take a vote on it. So let's table that for the next meeting.
Perfect. I will touch
And make
base with
sure
him.
we understand, and somebody is here to represent that. So I move to table 160 Bay Avenue. May I have a second?
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Okay, public hearings. First up is 0 Assumption Road. This is a new hearing. I will read the legal notice. In compliance with the regulations of Massachusetts General Laws, Chapter 131, Section 40, the Wetlands Protection Act, and Code of the Town of Marshfield, Chapter 294, Wetlands Protection, a public hearing will be held by the Marshfield Conservation Commission on Wednesday, January 17th, 2024, to consider the request for determination of applicability filed by David Good. And I see Mr. Holmes is here to present this.
Good evening, members of the commission. Brad Holmes with ECR on behalf of David Good. Along with me this evening is Attorney Adam Brodsky, who's on Zoom. We submitted a request for determination of applicability for a minor project consisting of 4 beehives. This project was recently in front of the commission in a somewhat different proposal. When I got involved, I took a look at the proposal and the location of the wetlands, and we discussed as a team that we should revise and resubmit, and that's why we're here. So what we have done is corrected the location of the resource area. It's a salt marsh. The salt marsh extends to the shoulder of Assumption Road. What we're proposing is the same proposal of beehives, but instead of putting them on a diamond footing, more kind of structural footing, we're proposing to put them on cedar posts, and then the beehive itself would be above the flood zone. So the cedar, all work would be done by hand. The cedar posts can be driven in by hand. It's a minor project such as, osprey nests or greenhead fly boxes. Those kind of things are routinely installed in salt marshes. This is even smaller than that, consisting of 1 cedar post per beehive. There is an existing pathway that leads from the road to this area. We would site the beehives within open areas. There isn't a need to cut vegetation. There's certainly enough space to do that. And it's as we stated in the RDA application, it's a minor activity. It doesn't involve the alteration of a wetland resource area. Cedar posts are routinely installed in salt marshes associated with piers, pressure-treated structures and whatnot, and piers. This is less than that. So it is what it is. It's 4 cedar posts with 4 beehives mounted on top. There is nothing else proposed other than those beehives, and all work will be done by hand. It won't involve the use of any machinery. The beehives will be constructed off-site and installed on top of the cedar posts. With that, I'll bring it back to the commission.
Thank you. So the last time we looked at this, I believe there was some discussion about there being a buffer zone and this being in the buffer zone. Now you have it in the salt marsh.
Correct. The buffer
Okay.
zone would extend onto Assumption Road.
Right.
We're in the resource area of the salt marsh.
Okay, so you're in an area that is clearly jurisdictional to this commission.
For sure, yes.
And putting posts into the salt marsh is a fill in a resource area.
Well, actually, posts aren't considered fill in a resource area. So, for instance, if you think of, we install piers routinely over salt marshes, through salt marshes. Piles themselves associated with a pier aren't considered fill. Therefore, we'd be trying to replicate or do something like that. It's not an activity that is looked on as an alteration of the salt marsh, or else we wouldn't be able to install piers.
Well, the reason we have piers on piles is to make sure you don't have the damage to the salt marsh. You're
Well-
staying off of it because you're up on, in this instance, you're going to have pilings in the salt marsh, which I believe, in my opinion, is a fill, and there is going to be additional traffic in and out
Well-
of the marsh, on the marsh.
So as far as, this isn't a pier project, but I'll just relate to what you're saying. When we're looking at a pier project, the concern is that we're not going to have impacts to the salt marsh, such as shading and whatnot, so the planking, spacing and whatnot are regulated. So is the width of the pier itself. The piles are obviously looked at to try to maximize the distance of the piles in the salt marsh so that it's not overly constructed. But that, as far as the protection of the salt marsh, the pile itself isn't a concern, it's the pier itself. With this proposal, you're just talking about basically a 4x4 cedar post, and that there won't be any shading impacts because they're standalone with a beehive structure on top. So it's not, I relate it to the pier because that's something we're familiar with being structures in a salt marsh, or, you've all seen the greenhead boxes that are in salt marshes. I've seen osprey nests. These are less area and smaller than those structures.
Osprey nest poles have to be in a resource area because that's where the birds live. And greenhead boxes also have to be where the greenheads are. They're also temporary. They're out for maybe 4 to 6 weeks and then they're removed in most cases. In my opinion, I'm going to let other commissioners discuss, but in my opinion, this is a fill in a jurisdictional area that would require an NOI. Does anybody else want to comment? Mike, do you have any comments you'd like to make?
You've essentially addressed all of my concerns. Some options suggested by myself for the commission could be a positive one determination if that the area described on the reference plan is an area subject to protection under the Act. Removing, filling, dredging, or altering of the area requires the filing of a notice of intent. And also option 5, which is the area and/or work described on the reference plans and documents is subject to review and approval by the Marshfield Concom pursuant to the following municipal ordinance. And that would be our Chapter 294 Wetland Protection.
One thing that I'd like to add, because I should have stated this would potentially be an improvement to the salt marsh with additional pollinators, which is a good thing. We're all a loss of pollinator habitat, so anything we can do to increase pollinator habitat is a good thing.
I would
And-
recommend that you don't go there for 2 reasons.
I just,
I'll let you finish. Go
right,
on.
no, I mean, obviously, an installation of beehives adds to our pollinator community, so I'll leave it at that. And I did want to reference that the applicant has sent in, as part of the file, a management plan on how the
Yes,
hives are
we do
managed.
have.
Okay.
We do have that management plan. With respect to that, I will point out that nothing in a salt marsh is insect pollinated. And secondly, the current scientific research is beginning to show that honeybees are destroying our native bees and causing a lot of damage. But that's a sidebar. That's really not what we're here to talk about. Would any other commissioners like to comment on anything here?
I think I'm just concerned about the maintenance of it and just the path. There's an existing pathway, but that's to be determined, I think. But, you know, just the back and forth and the maintenance of the beehives and the tending to the beehives and being on the salt marsh continuously. I don't know all the details as far as how many times that is. We have that in the plan.
Not specifically, but, you know, beehives need a certain amount of
Right.
attention.
Right.
And you have to check them periodically, and when you offload the honey, that's, you know, that's a whole operation.
Right. And we're on the.
Yeah, whether or not it's fill or not, it's certainly an alteration of some sort, which still brings it
Under
NOI.
a positive determination, yeah. Any other comments?
Yeah, I would think it's a positive determination of applicability, it's altering the salt marsh.
Does anyone in the audience have comments, either here in the room or on Zoom?
Well, my first comment.
I'm sorry, if you will list your name and address?
It's Deborah DeRoche, 32 Squires Ave, Green Harbor, direct to butter. My first comment would be that the path that they're talking about that is already there is a path that was created by perhaps early September of 2023. There was no path there. The path was created just fairly recently.
Thank you. Gentleman over here?
Thank you. Steve Olson, 58 Assumption Road, Direct Abutter. I submitted some comments this morning. Not sure if the board had a chance to get them. I don't want to read the whole statement, but I do want to just summarize a few points made. So one, I think the board mentioned it earlier, an increase in human activities within a salt marsh does not seem like an appropriate way to preserve the natural resources of the town of Marshfield. Allowing access for installation and maintenance of any beehives will result in destruction of the vegetation that's traveled upon and over time reduce the benefits of such vegetation. I think someone else brought that up also. Someone just mentioned this, but for the record, there is no existing pathway. There is now. A portion of the wetland boundary along the shoulder of the road and salt marsh border were cleared by the project proponent this past summer. It was August of 2023. Tree limbs were pruned, brush was cut and cleared, and vegetation was trampled. Access to the salt marsh appears to be through a bordering vegetative wetland or transitional wetland. Whatever the case may be, it has not been, I think, appropriately identified as what type of resource it is. I, too, am not aware of any flowering plant species in the salt marsh that will benefit from an increase in pollination. Can the proponent please prepare a comprehensive list of any benefits, environmental benefits that outweigh the negative impacts of the subject salt marsh? My last comment is, I know that my final comment may be beyond the purview of this commission and may be more appropriate for the select board, but I feel compelled to ask anyway. Approving the placement of beehives in a salt marsh does not seem to be the best way for the town of Marshfield to protect its natural resources. Furthermore, there does not appear to be any compelling environmental benefits of placing and maintaining beehives in a salt marsh. So I ask, is there not a better place in the town of Marshfield or the applicant's property to place and maintain beehives? So some recommendations. I too feel that the board should recommend, the commission should recommend a positive determination and require full notice of intent. And if a notice of intent is required and an application is prepared, that a full delineation of all the boundaries and resources be completed in accordance with the DEP handbook. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone?
I have a procedural thing, I think. Joe DeRosa, 32 Squires Avenue. I am a direct abutter. My question, I guess, is, my understanding is there should be a listing in the application of direct abutters. There is no listing.
That's the difference between a request for determination of applicability,
Yeah.
which is what we have in front of us, which does not require notification
Okay.
to abutters, and a notice of intent, which does require the notification of all abutters.
Okay. My misunderstanding, thank you for the correction.
Anyone else in the room?
Hi, my name's Dan Roach, 14 Marion Street, and I'm not a direct abutter, but I'm very much right on the marsh. My biggest concern here tonight was the comment that I heard, it is what it is. And I'm going to be honest, it isn't that at all. This is a beachhead. This is a Trojan horse of nature to start to develop an area that I believe is very important to the residents as far as flooding and other mitigation of storms and wave activity. If we allow this to continue, I'm afraid that we're going to see more and, I guess, larger impacts of water coming in. And my biggest concern is for the homeowners that are there, and also for the town to think ahead what this is and where it's going, that if we're not careful, we could have residents with flooded homes that may come back after the town at some point and say, why was this allowed to happen? You've taken away a natural resource that protects all of the homeowners there. Now, maybe eventually in 100 years it'll happen and it will go away, but we're actually going to accelerate it with this action. And so I'm deeply concerned that this is just a small baby step, and then that's going to open up. And so I would ask that we make sure that we look at this, with a wide-angle lens and make sure that we're looking down the road and say, what is the real intent here? Because I don't believe this is it.
Thank you. Anyone else in the room?
I have a question as soon as I shut off my phone, sorry. But you know who it is. My other half. Anyways, I'm Dick Coyle, and I'm from 15 Naomi Street. And I heard the word cedar post. And question in my head, are these covered creosote?
Sure.
Are they?
No.
Yeah.
So you go to Morrison's Lawn and Garden in Plymouth, they sell cedar posts that are the natural cedar. They actually have the pruned off the edges. They come in 6 feet and 8 foot lengths. They're actually cut at the end. That's what would be used. They would be driven with a sledgehammer because you want to get them in. And then you would put the elevation of the marsh is about 6 feet. The flood zone is about 9. So you get about 3 or 4 feet of post. Then you put your wooden birdhouse on. Very minimal. I've heard what the commission is, what they're feeling. I'm not going to try to convince you of that, but I'll tell you what you have out there. You have a salt marsh. You have invasive honeysuckle and people dumping yard waste off of Assumption Road. There's trash that kind of jets some flossom in there. So the installation of 4 posts in the salt marsh is certainly not going to degrade this system and create a flooding impact that impacts people. But I'll leave it at that. Everything would be natural materials, and as all we have done is what's in the RDA. There's nothing behind it. There's no secret structure that we're proposing.
So no creosote?
No creosote, natural cedar.
Yes.
I'm Pam Drake Manning, 46 Assumption. I'm concerned about all of it, but I'm also concerned about the fact that there are toxins in the marshland. Supposedly in the 60s and 70s, DDT was profusely there. I want to know if this has any deleterious effect to that as well.
Do you have any
Only
information
natural
on that?
materials, no herbicides or pesticides would be used.
She's asking about previous pesticides.
I don't have any information.
You
on
don't
that.
have that information. Mr. Olson?
I think, to clarify, your question is, would the activity release anything that's in there, the activities that you're proposing, could it release something and/or both the installation of the wood post or whatever the routine is for monthly or quarterly, back and forth, is that going to trample and release stuff that's in the sediment out there? It could be deleterious.
No, there wouldn't be any of that activity. I mean, people used to salt marsh hay, and people do walk through marshes and whatnot. There isn't, it's not that walking once in a while to periodically maintain your beehive isn't going to have an impact, in my opinion, to the salt marsh. I did grow up with beehives. You go out, you don't have to check them often. Once in a while, you do have to put another structure on top, and then at the end of the summer, you would harvest the honey, but you're not out there very often.
Is anyone on Zoom who would like to comment or ask a question? I see a hand raised. Would you state your name and address, please?
Yes, my name is David Russell. I live at 77 Bay Ave. My house backs up to the marsh, not directly onto this parcel, but I do back up onto the marsh. I would like to acknowledge, I know that Harry Klebanoff had sent a lot of documentation into the commission ahead of time. I have read all the documentation that Harry has sent, and I'm in agreement with all of it. A couple points I would like to emphasize that Harry brought up was, one, there's no need for natural pollination in this area at all. We're not an agricultural zone that would benefit from honeybees. The other point that I'd like to emphasize, in that reading a lot of documentation on what are the ideal conditions or best conditions where you would want to raise honeybees for the sake of pollinating and also deriving the honey from the honeycombs, this is a less than ideal environment for them in that salt marsh is not natural water that the bees need to survive. There's no really large bodies of fresh water around here for the bees to survive. And I'm worried that if bees are installed here, that they're going to die off fairly quickly because it's just not a proper environment where they could get flooded, no fresh water. There could be issues with them getting enough pollen in the first place to survive because there's not a lot of flowering plants around here that need a lot of pollination. So, my 2 cents.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Yes. May I speak next?
Yes, you
I'm
may.
I'm Kathleen Deedy. I am a direct abutter. I'm here with my husband, Jim Deedy. We live at 35 Marion Street, and we abut directly to the David Good property. And can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay. Okay, thank you. I don't want to be redundant to some of the points that have been made already, but I am in 100% agreement with the concerns that have been raised about putting these cedar posts and these beehives in the marsh. I believe that the activity will degrade the system, and we have had flooding around our property, particularly in the last week with that storm, and I think anything that is done to this marsh will be detrimental. When we bought our property, we were told by the then chairman of conservation that not a blade of grass could be touched in this marsh. And we hope that conservation will honor that because that was under the impression when we purchased the property that nothing would ever happen to the saltwater marsh. And I know that protection of shellfish, the carbon capture of the saltwater wetlands secures more carbon than the equivalent area of the same in a forest land. So I think it's very important that we protect the saltwater marsh. So I'm opposed to these beehives. Not to mention the fact that I love flowers, and there are no flowers in the marsh, and I am allergic to bees. I've been in urgent care twice on steroids, and I have to go on an EpiPen if I get stung again. So I don't want these bees in my yard.
Thank you. Does anyone else have anything new to add?
I have a few questions.
I'm sorry, who is that?
It's Michael Lawrence, 93 Avon Street.
Okay, go ahead.
Can the petitioner address how the existing path happened? Does he know?
I don't know. I used it to access the area.
He does
Okay,
not.
so-
I don't have a history on it.
He does not know. He is new on this project.
Okay, my second question is, I'm just curious on why you emphasize that this is just for beehives. Is there a reason why you just emphasize that?
I can answer that. That's all we've submitted, sir. I don't know what else you were referring to. The request for determination of applicability is, as I said, it's stated. There aren't any other activities
well,
other than they.
I'm asking you what you're aware of, because I thought it was kind of an unusual statement for you to make.
Chair Hannafin, this is Adam Brodsky.
Hello, Attorney Brodsky.
How are you?
I'm
Happy
fine,
New-
thanks. How are you? Happy New Year.
Good, thank you. I just don't want this to devolve into a cross-examination of Mr. Holmes. If people have questions regarding the project, we're happy to answer them. But Mr. Holmes should not be subject to direct and hostile questions from any of the interested parties.
I'm just responding to his presentation.
Let me just clarify, what we have in front of us tonight. We have a request for determination for beehives in the marsh. So our function as a conservation commission is to determine whether this is impactful to the resource area or not. I have expressed that it is my opinion that this is an alteration to a salt marsh, which would require a notice of intent. And unless there are other comments, I would move to vote that this is a positive determination. Is it a positive determination 1 and 5, requiring a notice of intent? In addition to that, it will need to be accompanied by a variance request, and that will require an alternatives analysis. That is my movement. May I have a second?
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Brad. Okay, now we are on to South River Street. Ned?
Yes, good
Okay,
evening.
this is a continued hearing. Oh, and let me just step back 1 second. I do not believe I mentioned confirming that all administrative requirements were satisfied
Yes.
on the RDA.
Yes, for the previous RDA, that is correct. The Zero Assumption Road.
Yes. Okay, so where are we now?
So we do have a revised drawing of the area highlighting 1, 2, 3 trees that have a diameter of 8 inches or larger. And we realize that that will constitute a meeting with the planning board because it's a designated scenic road, South River Street. So that would be our next step to look at. I did send some pictures that showed, because I wasn't sure at the last meeting if everyone had a chance to walk that area. But I sent some to Conservation, just highlighted.
I've walked it a couple of times.
Okay.
I went today to see what trees were flagged. How wide is the path going to be? I mean, I can see the stakes, but what is the measurement?
Up to 5 feet.
Okay.
And it would
Is that-
follow the meandering of the road there.
The road there.
Mimic that.
Okay. There's actually one tree, which is probably the biggest one, that I almost wonder if you couldn't leave
Go
it.
around it.
Just, it's just sort of right on the edge there, but I'll let you go to you have to go to planning board?
Yes.
Yeah. I'll let you go talk to them on the.
And I'd be happy to walk that with you so we could
Yeah, maybe we'll-
see what the tree exactly. Because
Yeah.
it looks like there's one that has 2 or 3 trees grown together, and that could be,
Yeah, and a lot of them have been topped by the utility companies,
Yeah.
and they're pretty beaten up. And but there was one I thought maybe we could save, but
Sure.
we could determine that later. So you'll go to the planning board.
yes, we'll, based on a positive outcome, we'll go to planning to set up the meeting to talk about the trees to come down, or the trees to review.
Right.
For the scenic roadway.
Okay. And I don't know if you're going to go out there with them or anything, but if you do, I'd be happy to go with you. And
Okay.
we can.
Yeah, I
all
will,
look at
I
it.
will speak with the planner, Greg Guimond, tomorrow to see what his pleasure is and how they would like to work that.
Work on that.
Yeah, and then I'll let you know, and you can let the board know. Certainly, if anyone wanted to come out when we walk it, that'd be helpful too, so
Yeah.
everyone could see.
Okay.
Would you be interested in any replacement trees where they get taken down?
That might
Because
be a good option.
if
It's
they're-
a scenic
if they're
road.
heavily pruned by Eversource, they'll supply
replace?
replacement trees.
That's a good idea.
Sure, we can check with that.
Yeah. Okay. We'll put that in our back pocket and, yeah, maybe replace a few that were taken down because it is going to change the canopy there a bit. And I'm just thinking in terms of the neighbors and the scenic road aspect. We don't want to strip it out too much.
Sure.
If we don't have to. Okay. So I move to continue this. We don't really know what the time frame would be with the planning board, or
Yeah, we didn't go that far with Mr. Guimond today, but.
well, we'll continue to our next meeting, which is
I believe it's the 7th, let me confirm. Yes, it is.
February
It's the
7th? Okay. We will continue to February 7th and revisit it
Okay.
then. And if we're not ready then, we'll just,
Sure, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I will, that'll be on my agenda tomorrow, talk with planning, see what they can set up for a meeting for the hearing, and also to see when, or if they want to go out and walk it prior to, and then we can notify the board
Okay.
and have, anyone or everyone join up if they'd like to.
Okay, so I move that we continue 172 South River Street trail work to February 7th. May I have a second? Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Perfect, thank you.
Thank you, Ned.
All right.
And now we have 0 Main Street. This is a continued hearing, and the hearing officer is Vice Chair O'Donnell.
Okay, Mike, would you like to report on where we stand on this?
Yes, so we sent out 3 RFPs, requests for quotes. We've received 2, one from Epsilon Associates, Inc., and one from Beals and Thomas. There is a significant price difference between the 2 quotes. I'll point that out as well.
And your evaluation of their proposals, are they both similar?
They're both fairly similar. The Beals and Thomas, the staff working on it seem to be a bit more senior in the company.
Just to clarify, one of the questions that came up, number one, this went to the selectmen, and I believe they sent it back to us, and we have reviewed it, and we find no conflict of interest based on the input from them.
We sent it to town council, and he has confirmed there is no conflict with the Beals and Thomas that you raised when you went to appeal to them.
May I ask why you solicited another quote from them if there's no conflict of interest?
We are exercising extreme prudence. You wanted 3 RFPs. We didn't feel that was necessary, and technically it is not. But to err on the side of caution and to make sure we are not doing anything to be criticized for, we did put out 3 RFPs. One firm declined, and Epsilon and Beals and Thomas responded.
Do you feel you have enough information from those 2 firms to move forward with a decision on one of them tonight? With all due respect, my client filed this application in July. We came to you in August. I was told the commission wanted to do a site visit. I emailed the conservation agent 3 times asking for dates for the site visit and got no response. I came back in front of the commission. I was told that there were additional locations where there were wetlands maybe present on the site. We re-reviewed them. We resubmitted an updated plan on September 25th. The commission hasn't done anything with this application since then, except send out a request for an RFP to do a peer review. I fully support a peer review. One should be done here. It was raised that you were going to hire Beals and Thomas back in November. I appealed that to selectmen because the price was exorbitant. It sounds like that's what you're finding with this review of it. Since November, again, nothing has happened. Per statute, you have 21 days to review these applications. We've been extremely lenient on pushing that. The property owner is getting upset. We want to move forward with this. If you have 2 proposals from 2 qualified firms, can we discuss them tonight and make a path here to move forward? I'm afraid that we're losing more time. Now there's snow on the ground, which is going to impact reviews even further. Can we please move forward with this project?
We do not feel that we have enough information tonight. We got these proposals late last week, and then we had a holiday, and because there is a discrepancy between the pricing, we want to go back and clarify things with each of these firms and give them a chance to potentially adjust their numbers. With respect to the ground freezing, we also would, in the RFPs, we indicated we would like this work done in April. When the ground is not frozen, DEP does not recommend soil sampling of frozen ground.
May I ask what the date of the Epsilon proposal is?
You have that, Mike?
Yes, the Epsilon proposal is dated January 9th, 2024.
What is the 3rd proposal you've requested, and when do you expect it?
The 3rd company declined to, they are not available. All we have to do is ask. We don't have to get a response.
Okay, so you're going to make a decision between these 2 proposals that you currently have?
Correct.
What is the date of your next meeting?
February 7th.
February 7th.
One other point I'd like to make is, I don't remember what terminology we used when we asked for a third party, but there is a difference between a third party and a peer review. A peer review would just check existing wetland lines. Between your first submittal and your second, an entire new wetland was discovered. Our feeling is this whole area needs to be checked in case there could even be further. So that's why it's more than a peer review, just to make that as a public statement. Am I correct on that?
You are correct. It is not a peer review. We are asking for a brand-new, clean delineation by a third party.
The applicant is unwilling to continue this hearing. We'd like the commission to make a decision on the peer review so that we can move forward with that, or we'd like to close this public hearing tonight.
If we close this hearing, are you going to be subject to the 2-year waiting period to reapply?
No, we will not be. We will be appealing it to the DEP immediately. And that's not the route that we want to go. I would like to keep this local if we can, but the applicant has directed me to take that route tonight if this object is not moving forward in a positive fashion. And it appears that it's not. It's been 6 months. We've paid $3,000 with this application. We want to move forward. You're not soliciting another proposal. Why aren't we discussing the 2 RFPs tonight and moving forward? They're obviously from firms that you feel comfortable with. They're from firms that you feel are qualified. Let's discuss them. What is the difference in the numbers?
The commission makes this decision, okay?
Understood.
And until we have clarification on a few things, we're not prepared to discuss that tonight.
May I ask what you need clarification on? What specific items?
The discrepancy between the proposals, which is wide.
We'd like to move forward with one of these proposals tonight. You do not have the applicant's permission to continue this hearing.
I'm not sure where to go with this.
If you insist on closing, and you want to appeal, you have given us 2 wetland lines, neither of which we find correct.
You've never conducted a site visit with our wetland scientist. You requested to do one, but have never done so. So I don't know how you can make that conclusion at this point.
Well, we were out there and we have eyes, and there a number of the commissioners went to the site, and we told you what our concerns were, and you came back with yet another delineation that was clearly deficient. And we are not going to approve anything without that third party.
If you go back to these 2 parties and the scope is the same, will you select the cheaper proposal?
If the scope is the same, yes. But we need to make sure that because of the discrepancy, that both parties fully understand the scope.
You're directing them to wait until April to do this work at this point?
Yes.
It's extremely unfortunate. We filed this 6 months ago. This could have been done by now. You've known this position. You and I have spoken personally about this. I've voiced my position in emails to the agent, which go unresponded. I don't know that you've ever sent me an email, Mike, in response to any of my requests. I find that disappointing. if we can continue this for 2 weeks so that you can make a decision and I can come back here and be assured that we are going with the cheaper proposal and move forward in 2 weeks, I'll grant the extension for 2 weeks, if that can be the case, or to February 7th, your next meeting date. Otherwise, we'd like to close the hearing. Can I be assured that we're going to go with the cheaper proposal and that we can move forward at the next meeting?
I can't guarantee you that we're going to go with the cheaper proposal because we need to know that the person who came in on the low end of the scale understands the scope. If in fact they both understand the scope and they are going to provide us with the same service, then we will certainly entertain the lower price.
May I ask what the range of the prices was?
I'd rather not go there. This is still under commission consideration. And it is our prerogative to choose an appropriate third party. We have that right.
I understand you do, and we've been asking you to do that since July when we submitted this application. This could have been done within the 21 days that the DEP requires of you to do it. We've granted you extensions and extensions. I will allow the extension to February 7th on behalf of the applicant if we can move forward with this understanding. So, request a continuance if we can do that. I wish this could have been shared with me tonight. It would have saved us from coming here. We could have just sent in a request anyways if we knew we were waiting for information still. It's unfortunate. It's costing the property owner here additional time and additional money. So I don't know why this project is being treated differently than any of the other projects I've worked on in this town. But I've done business here for 20 years. I've never had a project go like this. It's really unfortunate. It's disappointing. As a former Marshfield citizen and growing up here, I hate seeing citizens treated this way.
Well, in my time on the commission, this is the only instance where I have seen a wetland delineation that was inadequate. 2 wetland delineations that this commission found to be inadequate. So,
We'll see what the peer reviewer says. We'll see you on February 7th.
all right, if that is amenable to you, I move that we, oh, I'm sorry, you're the hearing officer.
Well, thank you for helping me out here. I make a motion to continue until February 7th. Can I get a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, that concludes our public hearings. Now we have requests for certificates of compliance. The first being 1 Atlantic Avenue, which as far as I know is, we have no new update on that. So I move to table COC SE 422199, 1 Atlantic Avenue. May I have a second?
Second.
All in favor? Aye. 430 Holly Road, SE 422853 is, so you did the site visit, Mike, and everything with the exception of a brick walkway is as done to plan?
It's a very small brick walkway in front of a staircase leading to the driveway.
Okay. I move that we vote to issue a certificate of compliance for SE 422853. May I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. SE 422891, 938 Summer Street. Were you able to go there?
Yes,
or?
I was able to go there. I contacted the homeowner, Mr. Dickinson, today, who was happy to let me on the property. The replication area has been successfully revegetated. All plantings there have successfully grown, and other than those plantings, just native brush has also taken over the area, notably greenbrier.
Yeah, okay. I move that we approve a certificate of compliance for SE 422891. A second, please.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. SE 29, SE 42, 2923, 162 Bay Ave. I believe this is still waiting for the correction of a floodplain violation. So I move to continue this. May I have a second?
Hello?
Oh, hello. I'm sorry.
Hi.
Hi.
I think you're talking about, are you talking about 160 Bay Ave?
No, 162.
160 was a
Sorry,
business.
my brother.
Were you here for 160?
I am.
Okay, we addressed that earlier, and I don't think you were on yet.
I was not, I'm sorry, my mistake.
Okay.
Any chance I can go back?
We can go back.
It's
Can we
pretty
go back?
simple.
Yeah. You could finish
Yeah, I think we're okay
the
with
COCs and then reopen the business items.
Yeah, you're going, well, tell us what you're going to do.
I have a deck that is too high. Has been brought to my attention by Mike. I spoke to him, what we decided initially was to put pavers down, but I'm backing off on that because I don't want to put pavers down when my grandchildren play. So we wanted to take the deck up, remove the sand that was put in there, put the deck back down so the top of the deck is level with the sand.
I wouldn't recommend excavating any materials off of a barrier beach.
Yeah, I think,
Driving piles and putting the structures on the piles 2 feet above the adjacent grade would be an option, as well as pervious pavers in this area. But digging sand out of this area would not.
Excuse me, Mike, may I interrupt for 1 minute? I believe the sand was taken from the backyard and pushed into that area to raise it. So I just returned that to the backyard.
I'm not entirely clear on,
I don't understand.
So this was I did this
Right.
project.
yeah,
And so I believe what Mr. Tedeschi was proposing originally was to have the deck on the surface of the sand. A wood deck, wood walkway on both sides of the house, and a wood deck on the surface of the sand. The options that was given to him with Andrew's agreement was either to raise the wooden walkway, I forget what the actual height was, a foot or
2 feet off the adjacent grade.
off the grade, for both the two walkways and the deck in the back, or to just put pervious pavers on the ground for both the two walkways and the deck. When I saw this, I thought I read that the proposed walkway was pervious paver walkway.
that's what I had seen.
That is.
But you,
Yes, may I interrupt a minute? Yes,
Yeah.
both walkways on either side of the house have been completed with previous pavers.
okay,
Okay.
I
but,
just didn't want to put the pavers out and back because it's an area where like grandchildren play and I don't want them to stub their toes and, and whatever. So we wanted just to be able to lower the deck so that the top of the deck is no higher than the adjacent sand.
no.
The existing wooden deck?
Yes,
Well, you can't do that. That was what was being asked to removed and either be replaced with an elevated deck or pervious pavers. So it sounds like you got the walkways
Yeah.
consistent with what was recommended, but that wooden deck, which exists, would be on the surface of the ground, and that's not permitted.
Even though it was there before? Part of it was there before?
Well, there was one that was there before that was removed, and that was being replaced with a similar wooden deck, an upgraded wooden deck, but it was in the same location on the surface of the ground, correct?
Yes, but it's not exactly, because it's, when we put the addition on, we lost part of that space.
But I think the problem here is, the issue here is that there can be no wooden deck on the ground surface.
On the ground level.
It either has to be pervious pavers, like the walkways, or it has to be elevated.
Okay. So the answer is no. To my request.
To having the deck sitting on the sand, yes, that's a no. You can't,
Okay.
you either have to have it 2 feet off the ground, or you have to continue the pervious pavers into that deck area.
Can I ask you a question, Joey? Just can you educate me? What is the difference between having the deck level with the sand or having pervious pavers?
The when carries sand and other material of that nature, it can pass either under the deck or over the pervious tiles, and the pervious tiles also allow for the passage of water into the subsurface, which concrete and other ground surfacing methods do not allow.
The deck, Mike, would allow water to seep through because it'd be, like quarter-inch gaps all along. Number one. Number two, it's not going to be raised, it's going to be low, it's going to be in the ground. It's not going to be stopping any wind or bringing sand across it.
It has to be above, it has to be at least 2 feet above the adjacent grade. So that's not the grade below the deck, that would be the surrounding grade of the property as well.
I'm not quite following, so can you say it one more time?
This is a floodplain issue. It's,
Right.
okay? So, per the building commissioner, Andrew Stewart, you have the two options of raising the deck 2 feet above the ground level or using pervious pavers, okay?
Okay.
He would be the better person to explain the rationale behind that. But that is a floodplain issue.
All right, I'll give him a call tomorrow. I think I know what you're saying, but I'll give him a call tomorrow just to confirm.
Okay,
All right, thank you for your help.
sure, thank you.
Bye-bye. Bye-bye.
Good night. Okay, SE 2042, 2923, 162 Bay Ave, his brother. We're going to continue that because we are still waiting for a floodplain violation. May I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. And finally, 53 Abbey Street, SE 422930. I move that we vote to issue an order of compliance, certificate of compliance. May I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. And that concludes our business tonight. I move to close the Conservation Commission hearing for the town of Marshfield, Wednesday, January 17th. May I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. We are adjourned.